Hey y'all, it is Andrea here. I am going to try and answer two of you guys' most asked questions. And those are, how do you get everything done? And this kind of goes with it, how to make money on your farm or homestead or at starting a small business just in general. So let's get started. So I'm heading out this morning. I have got meat deliveries to make. We're kind of spread in all different directions. Ben is at work. Emily is working on some things for me here at the farm. Lane will be back here at the farm in a little bit. He had a class this morning. So we are just in that phase of life. We kind of spread out in all directions, but it's not always been that way. I have had kids here at home, which was more work, having smaller kids, but at the same time, I had more help here at home. So it's just different phases of life. But I'm heading out, gonna make meat deliveries today, gonna take you guys with me and try to give you some of my best tips to answer these questions. All right, y'all, so I got my first delivery made. I found a place to pull over so I could talk to you guys for a second, and then we're on to the next one. The first question that I want to address is, how do you get everything done? Well, the first answer is I don't get everything done. There's days that I don't accomplish everything that I needed to, that things fall apart, that things come up, and I just can't get everything done. Secondly, I don't get everything done as far as I'm not the only one that pulls off everything that's going on in our family's life. We all work together. And one thing I think you have to get good at if you're going to get things accomplished, and especially if you're trying to build a small business, but really just in life in general, if you're just living as a parent, is learning to delegate. We are in the phase of life, our kids are older. We have one in college and one about to graduate high school. But we have been doing this ever since they were little. And it doesn't matter if you live on a farm, if you live in town, or whatever the case may be. The more responsibility and chores you give them and can teach them as they're growing up, the better off they're going to be in life. They're going to know how to do things. They're going to know how to work for things. And we've always paid our kids a little bit, but that in turn gives them some money to pay for things that they want. And we don't have like a set of rules where we decide, is mom and dad paying or are they paying? They just assume they're always paying, unless like when we go out to eat as a family, of course, we don't make them pay, and we buy like their basic clothes and things like that. But as far as if it's things above and beyond, if it's going out to eat with their friends or whatever the case may be, they assume they're paying, and that makes them think about, do I really want this thing? So delegate, even if it means paying your kids. I don't see anything wrong with that. Teach them the value of hard work, and in turn, take some things off your plate. Next thing is you are going to have to get organized, and that is not my strong suit. If you talk to my family, I am kind of a disorganized, free-spirited type of person. Like, it doesn't bother me if my pantry is not just looks like it could be out of a magazine. That does not bother me. I do keep my house picked up, but I'm not what you would just call an organized person. But I do like list making. So you're going to have to become someone who somehow makes like a list or some type of schedule or something like that. And you're going to need to sit down, and all the things that you're trying to pull off in your life, you're going to need to kind of jot them down, if that's, digitally or on paper or whatever the case may be, and decide, is this even feasible? Can I even do all these things? Because if you jot down everything you're trying to do, and it's literally taking up every hour of every day, and you don't even have enough time to sleep, you probably have too much, and you're not really going to ever be able to pull all that off well. So you may have to focus in and trim down the things you're doing, whether that means saying no to some activities or whatever the case may be, to do a good job at the things you are trying to do. So my final tip for today on how do you do everything, and I've already addressed that I don't, but how do I do the things that I do, is recognizing how much time this right here takes. And I think that applies to all of us. Our phones, even if you don't have a smartphone, your computer, your devices, anything like that. And if you're someone who's in the rare minority that does not spend time on their phone, that's amazing. But the majority of people do. And I think that we waste so much time, and I'm preaching to myself here, sitting on our phone and just mindlessly scrolling. And if you need to do that to wind down, you know, and that you're doing that intentionally, that is one thing. But if you're just mindlessly, every time you get a free minute, picking up the phone and scrolling, and then you lose track of time and you've wasted an hour or more, that's what I'm talking about. And that is just a time sucker. So be mindful of that, even if you have to set limitations for yourself and say, you know, at this time of day, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to allow myself this amount of time, and then I'm going to get up and I'm going to move on. Because if we don't do that, we wind up just our head stuck in a screen all the time, and we're definitely not going to accomplish things. Okay, I said that was my last tip, but here is my last tip. And this is something I'm working on personally, so don't think I'm judging on any of these. I'm just sharing my personal experience with you guys. And that is, if you need more time in your day to get things done, you might need to look at, are you going to bed early enough? This has been one of mine and Ben's struggles our whole marriage, because he loves to go to bed early and he loves to get up early. I don't love to go to bed early, and I don't love to get up early. I don't stay up half the night or anything, but I do like to sit up and just wind down, and sometimes I just am sitting up wasting time. And then if you don't get enough sleep, you don't feel like getting up early. So I'm not telling you that to be successful that you need to go to bed at like 8 o'clock and you need to get up at 4:30 by any means. But if you could just take a look at your habits and maybe change it a little bit, it makes a world of difference. If you just set a reasonable time to go to bed and to get out of bed, and then once you get out of bed, like we talked about, not just wasting time on your phone, if you take a certain amount of time for each thing you know you need to do, your day will just go so much better, and it will be so much less stress if you can set yourself some sort of a schedule and stick to it. One thing I want to say as I'm pulling up to my next stop, and I am on a neighborhood road, there's no one around, just want to put that disclaimer out there, is to make anything like a new business or really anything successful, sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone. I have had to learn to drive in cities. That's not my comfort zone. It's not my forte. There's sirens going everywhere. In fact, just a minute ago, sirens were flying by me. I've drove through construction. I've learned to get around in a city, and I just was not raised this way, and I live way out in the country now even. So you may just have to get out of what's comfortable, but it has been good for me. All the experiences I've had doing all the things that we've done, pulling trailers, meeting new people, it's been a good thing. Although sometimes new things can be uncomfortable, they can also be good. And just because something's uncomfortable, sometimes you meet the nicest people. So I drove probably 3 miles down the road from my last stop today, and I am at a store that I love to shop in. I'm over an hour away from home, probably an hour and maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And so this is not a store that I drive to if I don't have a reason to come down here. It's just not feasible for me to use that much gas and time to drive to a store to shop. I used to shop when my kids were smaller. I would shop once a month and I would spend a bundle of money, but I would really only shop once a month. I would shop for staples and things, and I made a lot of things from scratch and all those kinds of things. And I still like to do those things, but now I don't necessarily keep up with necessarily shopping once a month. I just shop if I have to get out for meat deliveries or go get feed or whatever the case may be, and I'm going to be next to somewhere that I like to shop and I need a few things from, I make good use of that time. So that's another tip, whether you're building a business and you have to be out and about to places you don't normally go, or you're just trying to get a lot of things done and manage your time, is think about the places you're going and how to maximize trips and minimize the amount of trips you have to make. That's a huge time saver for me. Okay, I am done an hour later. This wound up actually being kind of a big trip for me. Haven't been down here in a while, and so made the most of it. But I wanted to touch on a couple more things before I wrap this up. So if you are wanting, we get asked quite a bit, like how do you go about starting a business? How do you start making money off your farm or homestead or whatever the case may be for you? And the biggest advice I have, just coming from, we've been building on this thing for years now, and we're still not to the point that Ben can just work from home. So my biggest piece of advice, just from experience, is don't quit your day job. I've heard some of the biggest social media influencers that I can think of interviewed, and one of them in particular, they asked him, what is the thing that pays you the most? Basically what they were getting at was which, social media pays you the most, and he said, my job. And that just really kind of stuck with me, because when we began, my goal was for Lane and Emily to be able to not have to get in the rat race and to be able to work for themselves and make a good living and just have a good life raising a family. And ultimately, I would have loved for Ben to have been able to work from home as well. And I know you guys have watched, different YouTubers and things quit their jobs, and now that, YouTube and farming and all that's all they do, and that's awesome. But I would just say, don't take that decision lightly. You have no idea, the years that family put into getting to that point, or just, what all went into that decision. So just when you're starting something new, don't just up and quit your job. I think that that's a very risky thing to do. There's a time to step out in faith and to take a leap, and there is times for that, but there's also times to plan and be prepared so you don't wind up in a bad situation. And so Ben's job has allowed us to put any extra income we could generate off the farm back into the farm. And if you are trying to start a business, no matter what it is, and you start at the beginning and you're trying to live off of that income, you can't take that income and put it back into the business because you're having to live off of it. So keep your job as long as you can. When it becomes, you'll know when it comes to the point where you're like, I can't keep doing both. For this business to grow, I have to give this up. You'll know when that time comes. But if you can keep your day job and continue to pour money back into your business, because y'all, the truth is it takes money to make money. And so that is the reason we have gotten to where we are, and we have a long way to go in hopes and dreams of building this thing. None of us live off of the income to this point, but the reason we've been able to get as far as we have is keeping our day job. So I am heading home. I have got this done. I actually thought I was going to have to drive an hour home and then take off and drive an hour and a half to pick up meat and to drop off some meat, because y'all, we are so close to having USDA inspected bacon. So I thought I was going to have to go drop that off and then drive an hour and a half back home. So another 3-hour round trip after I drove another hour home here in a minute. That trip has been put off until next week. So I get to go home today. I've put in a lot of hours this week, and I'm tired, and it's time to go home, cook a good meal, and relax. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for hanging out with me. I did want to mention one thing here at the end. If you guys have been around for a while, you know that about 8 months ago or so, my dad passed away after a brief illness. And I had told you at that time that you were going to start seeing a lot more of my mom around the farm, and she was going to be out, you know, involved in everything we were doing. And plans changed. She has just went from being independent to where she can barely walk. And I'm going to be taking her. Actually, tomorrow, when you see this video, it will already be done, and she is having a back procedure done. Hopefully, it's going to give her the ability to get around and be mobile again. And I hope that you will start seeing her on the farm. So if you think about it, would you say a prayer for her, remember her, lift her up? It's a scary time when you go start letting them operate on your back. But some points in life, you get to the point where you're like, you know what? If I don't do this, I don't have any quality of life. So I'm going to take the plunge, and I'm going to give it a go. So that's where we are. Hopefully by the time you see this, she's going to be doing fantastic. And yeah, I hope you get to see more of her. Thanks for watching. Thanks for caring about us. And we just appreciate y'all so much. God bless.